And this is really cool that Sustainable Red Bank does these kind of these different series with the public library. I always like to kind of see what other towns are doing and try to implement it in Asbury Park. So I'm going to see if the green team over there would do something with the public library like this. Since this is a huge issue. I mean, we see it in the presidential race. We see it in our daily lives, how sustainability and things like the Green New Deal and climate change just affects everything. And one of the things that you'll see, I'll go through a couple of different areas that are kind of cutting edge of local sustainability. But one of the things you'll see is just that sustainability isn't just planting some trees and having enough green open space in a town, but it goes a lot deeper and further than that. And what we try to do at Sustainable Jersey is to work with towns and work with school districts as well to go a lot deeper than just the tree plantings and the beach cleanups and the river cleanups and things like that. That are all very important, but obviously there's more to it than that. So how many of you are part of the Red Bank Green Team? Just you. Okay, great. So that's perfect. That's perfect. So I'm not speaking to to the already converted. So in terms of Sustainable Jersey, Sustainable Jersey, the organization itself started 10 years ago. It was basically a team effort that combined the League of Municipalities, a group of mayors that. Okay. And it was basically a collaboration between the League of Municipalities, a group of mayors that wanted to do things locally to try and address climate change, Rutgers University, and the New Jersey DEP. So, which is a really interesting combination of both private and public to do something that at the time was considered really cutting edge stuff. Sustainability wasn't something that you hear, daily like we do now. You go to any company website, you'll see they'll have like a sustainability statement or a sustainability report. Even 10 years ago, it was something that was really, really a progressive thing. So with Sustainable Jersey, what essentially we are is a framework for action. We provide resources, we provide guidance, we provide coaching to participants within a framework of essentially helping them achieve their sustainability goals, but we do it through a certification program. If you look in the folders that I passed out, you'll see the brochures that have the two certification programs that are the core of what Sustainable Jersey does. One is based on municipalities, and the other one is for schools. And we also provide, what we do is we develop all these different tools and resources so towns can achieve these sustainability goals, right? And the first thing you'll notice is that most of what you see in in those prescribed actions are not just saving energy and recycling. It delves into things that are a lot deeper. Things like public arts and social equity, diversity on boards and commissions, resiliency to storms, and a whole host of other things, including also developing your local economy, buying fresh, buying local. All of that collectively goes towards reducing greenhouse gases in their own way. And one of the really attractive things to a lot of towns, and one of the reasons why we've grown so much in 10 years, is that we also provide access to grants. Money is always a very kind of attractive thing to have towns participate in the event, in the program. And then we end up recognizing the accomplishments that different towns do. So in the past 10 years, there have been about, if you put in both schools and towns, you're talking about 13,000 individual discrete actions that have been accomplished, that have been achieved throughout New Jersey, which in total, it's we really are kind of pushing the needle. And how do we do it in terms of, you have towns like Red Bank that are just small boroughs, you have larger urban centers like Newark, and then you have, big rural, sometimes Republican and conservative towns like Colts Neck or Millstone. They all kind of buy in for their own reasons. And one of the things that you'll see is context has a big role. One town's goal to address climate change is another town trying to save money for taxpayers by cutting their energy costs. So, but the actual actions themselves, they're created by task forces that are issue matter experts, local leaders, federal and state agencies, stakeholders, and academics that come together, and we have a task force for each of the different areas for our actions. And so they are really like the experts in energy, or the experts in green design, or the experts in recycling. So that way, and they meet on a regular basis, so we're always kind of on the, I keep saying the cutting edge, but it's really just making sure that our actions are updated and they're kind of with what's going on in terms of best practices. And so municipalities and schools, once they register with our program, they choose which actions they have already done and provide documentation to our staff. By the way, we only have a staff of like 15 people for the entire state. And so it's really interesting to kind of be the catch-all for all these different actions and seeing what's out there. And we also, what we try to do is through this certification program, you see all the different program partners that we ally with. Through this certification program, a town will either, as they complete actions, they get points. And when they earn a certain amount of points, they get to either a bronze certification. If they go even deeper and they earn even more points by all the actions that they complete, they can get to a silver certification. So that's kind of part of the where the certification kind of recognizing the accomplishments part of it is at. So these are some of our program partners. This is basically just to show kind of where, how deep we are with a lot of different organizations, whether it's New Jersey Audubon, Duke Farms, universities, different state agencies. And this is just to show you how many participants we have. So out of the 565 towns in New Jersey, 450 participate in the municipal certification program. About 200 of them are certified either bronze or silver. The schools program, which started 5 years ago, has exploded. We have 855 schools that are registered. That's about a third of all New Jersey schools, and 242 of them are certified. And forgive me, I didn't check to see if Red Bank schools are registered. I believe they are, but they haven't gotten to certification yet. The borough of Red Bank, totally different story. We'll get to that too. So this is a little bit by the numbers. We get over 5,000 requests for assistance a year. We have over 100 different events, trainings, webinars, seminars to assist these towns to achieve these local sustainability goals. Like I said, we have, just last year, we have over 5,000, about 6,000 actions that, 4,000 actions that were submitted and about 2,000 that were approved. And those are all specific, individual, discrete actions from towns all over New Jersey. We have a really, really big website usage by all of our participants, and the reason why I put that on there is to highlight that our website is not the sexiest website in the world. We don't have any cat videos. We don't have like the outrage of the day, or we don't tweet in terms of a Twitter feed on there. But what we do have is basically that's where people go to go see what actions they want to accomplish in their town, which ones they've already done, and then how to do it. And we do step by step. If you go and you want to know about one of the actions in that brochure, you could click onto our website and click on that action, and it'll give you step by step how to do it, how much it costs, who is involved, what is the impact, in terms of climate change, in terms of greenhouse gases in some cases. And also we show examples of what other towns have done. At the end of the day, what we are is a standards organization. So we don't even do the, advocacy like most environmental groups do, because we are there as kind of like I said, like a resource standards for all these different towns. So people can go to our website, they can look at all the information, and they know it's completely unbiased, and it's really just what's out there and what other towns have done. So, and we've got about 11,000 people on our email list. Those 11,000 people are mostly volunteers that are on their local green teams. So it's something to be said that we have about 11,000 on the ground, essentially foot soldiers for sustainability at the local level. And we also give out a lot of grants, and we've given out almost 5 million grants since we started. And a lot of them are funded by various foundations, corporate foundations, family foundations, other nonprofits that we partner with. We have about 8 grant cycles throughout the year where these different grants go to different towns to accomplish various goals. And Red Bank is one of the biggest recipients in Monmouth County. You can see how many participants in terms of the amount of towns and schools that have started from when we started, where we had about 240 different participants. Now we're up to 1,290. So what's after silver, right? And I'll go into a little bit on each of the certifications. Like I said, bronze is pretty easy to get started. It's basically a town or a school district committing to do certain things, like committing to do more in terms of complete streets or making your downtown more pedestrian friendly, committing to do a climate action plan. And a lot of it has to do with ordinances and that kind of thing. When you get to bronze, which is about 150 points, that's when all of a sudden you really get to the real get down of what sustainability is about. It's actually putting those commitments to physical form, right? So that means putting a prescription drug recycling bin in your town hall, or making sure that you hold a green fair. Now green your green fair by having no carbon footprint for your green fair or your green expo. It means rain gardens, it means more community gardens, it means more buy fresh, buy local programs. Red Bank just started a green business recognition program, right? So it's things that residents that aren't even really interested in climate change or anything to do with sustainability can see, can feel, and they see a difference in just the quality of their community. So once you get to silver, like Red Bank has, what we decided to do was, instead of just awarding a catch-all gold gold certification, we divvy it up into groups of issue areas. So right now we have this gold star standard in energy, and it's, and I always tell people, with Sustainable Jersey and joining your own green team and sustainability as a whole, it's not the sexiest thing in the world. You're not, tying yourself to, a pipeline or gluing yourself to the state house. You're not going to go get arrested at Nancy Pelosi's office, but it still has a lot of impact locally for your kids, for your families, for your neighbors. It means doing things like energy audits to all of your municipal buildings, partnering with other towns to do energy aggregation and bulk renewable energy purchases. Includes doing trainings for municipal officials for green building, optimizing different streets and routes within your town. It means making your town EV friendly, making your town solar friendly, doing outreach to your residents about purchasing solar and seeing what state incentives are out there for low-income families to make their houses more energy efficient. Because at the end, you get a house that maybe there's a renter there, maybe it's low to middle income neighborhoods. Those are the most energy inefficient homes because it's an older housing stock. So they would benefit more from a lot of these state programs that are out there. And to be honest, a lot of the big utilities that are considered polluters, they also have these really great local programs to help low-income families save money on, weatherizing their homes and doing all kinds of really cool energy efficiency stuff. So it's something that I'm asked sometimes, like, how do you work with, PSEG or JCP&L? They're, really big polluters. And what I say is we don't endorse them, but they endorse us. And we try to promote whatever products is going to help local communities, no matter where they come from. Monsanto, maybe not, but. And so one of the big things, so this is kind of getting into, what I'm going to do is go through a couple of different slides really quick, just to kind of go through some of the main issues that have to do with what sustainability is, right? You said before, it's not just about solar energy, it's not just about electric vehicles or planting more trees. At this point in the game, and from what we hear from the UN, we only have barely a decade before things really start to become irreversible, if they haven't already, is to look at society as a whole and looking at our communities as a whole and seeing how they become not only more sustainable, but that also includes a healthier community, that also includes a more resilient community. And most importantly, something we see with the current administration in Trenton, not so much in DC, but in Trenton, is environmental justice and equitable communities. And that's something that Sustainable Jersey is taking really seriously. So we started a couple of years ago to study our own program to see how equitable the program is. And we started this equity initiative that basically we wanted to define equity, and co-develop a shared framework for understanding what equity is. Basically what it is at the community level, it's making sure that all these wonderful groovy things like electric charging stations for vehicles and rain gardens and complete streets are not just in the areas where with people that have the most resources already, but that it's spread out towards not just the haves but also the have-nots. It's to make sure that those communities that are going to be most affected by climate change, whether it's through lead in old water lines or old housing stocks, that there's particular attention paid to those communities. And most of those communities in New Jersey are Black and brown communities. So that's also kind of a lens that we put over, who is writing these grants, who is applying for different resources, and where are they going, right? And so that's basically screening for equity impact and sorting these actions into buckets based on need. We assess all the different municipal certification performances and grant awards in relation to those factors. And then what we try to do is fill those gaps, right? Where there's different blind spots and kind of seeing where we're missing in terms of promoting social equity. And that includes even in the organization. We had to take a really sobering look because the environmental community as a whole is very white. Gender-wise, it's pretty even. Actually, I think it's, even in my organization, I'm one of 2 men on staff, and the rest are all women. But definitely in terms of race and ethnicity, it's something where we're working on. That's where EJ comes from. So we started doing different studies on, distressed communities and where they are on our certification program. And we see that there's a bit of variation, but not too much. What we see is that a little bit higher distress equals maybe a town not registering with our program or not certified, not going towards certification, right? You see over here where and how many people know what a distress score is for a town? It usually is, it's pretty, in the, to make it really short and simple, a municipality in New Jersey, 0 is zero distress, and 100 is very, very distressed. That means economic factors, crime statistics, if there's any kind of business development going on or lack thereof, that all kind of goes into that distress category. So, Rumson would be like a 5. Camden is 99. So that's where the distress kind of level comes from. So on average, that's kind of where most of the towns are that are within our program or program. And this kind of shows a little bit more. Each of these dots is a town that's in our program, right? Or that's in New Jersey. So you see that there's still a lot that aren't within the program. You see a lot that reach bronze certification right here at 150 points. And then it just kind of like dissipates, right? And you see this whole group right here. Red Bank is about right there. Now this dot over here, this is interesting, right? So this is our highest scoring town in all of New Jersey. Can anyone guess what is the most sustainable or the greenest town in New Jersey? If you had to guess.
Princeton.
That's what most people say, but no. Anyone else?
Allentown?
Not Allentown?
Cape May?
Nope. Woodbridge Township, New Jersey. Oh, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. So Woodbridge you wouldn't think, like the crossroads of every interstate highway in New Jersey, right? It's like strip mall central. Woodbridge, New Jersey is the most sustainable town in terms of our program. Everything we throw at them in terms of different actions, they just eat up and digest and do it all. Partly because the mayor there really is super competitive, Mayor McCormick. He's your typical like Jersey machine politician, and he wants to be the best at all that stuff. But they have electric vehicles for a large percentage of their police force. They do, they actually have a police cruiser that's an electric vehicle right now. They have solar on all their municipal buildings. They do it all. 40% of their energy they buy from renewable resources. And so that's what that is right there. This guy right there, that's Camden. That's Patterson. That's Newark. I think that's Elizabeth over there. So you see that even the towns that have a high poverty, high crime rate, they still do okay on our chart. Like those towns, those cities that you consider like impoverished and maybe not too much in the mindset of sustainability or the environment, they actually do a lot in our program. And this is just another different distress score in terms of where they're at in terms of those that apply for grants, right? So what we notice in terms of equity is that there really isn't that much of a statistically significant difference between these different scores, and the actual certification levels are even though higher certification levels are significantly associated with a lower distress score, distressed municipalities don't really appear to face that much bias within our certification program, which is a good thing, right? But then you see, okay, well, what do we need to do? Like, where is there that maybe not a bias, but where is that blind spot? And because if you see here, these are the most distressed municipalities in New Jersey, right? You've got Camden right here. They're a silver certified town, just like Red Bank. You've got Atlantic City, which is a bronze. You've got Woodbine, which is a bronze. Trenton, that's bronze. Even Asbury Park, where I live, it's a silver certified town, along with Red Bank. So the one thing that we notice, for the most part, is that it's not just a town that has that's the most distressed in terms of poverty and in terms of crime, or in terms of subsidized school lunches for their schools. It also has to do with population. So what we notice is that it's not the big urban centers like Patterson or Camden or Newark, because they've got, you go to Newark, they may not be certified in our program, but they've got a whole office of sustainability. It's the smaller, poorer towns that don't have the same resources that the bigger towns do. So you've got suburban towns that do okay, you've got the bigger cities that do okay, but it's those ones that don't have the money, nor the resources, nor the capacity to do the program that is kind of our that we've kind of realized that's where our blind spot is. So just to move on a little quicker here. So yeah, so that's what we noticed from doing our own equity analysis, and that's something that we're working on now to try and move forward. So there's no meaningful bias within the certification or the grant making itself in terms of race or distress levels, but larger communities have an advantage. So the question that we serve ourselves, and also we ask the rest of the state and activists and communities, is, you know, where should we focus our resources to address this kind of systemic bias? So, you know, our analysis shows that that implicit bias is not a meaningful determinant for success in sustainable Jersey, but resources should be focused on developing these different programming to promote equity, and I'll add to that, to promote equity in these smaller, poorer towns. So that's one aspect of sustainability that we're really focusing on, EJ and social equity. The other part has to do with collaboration between different communities, right? So one of the things that kind of happened organically once all these towns started kind of getting involved in our program is that the towns started talking to each other, right? And they started meeting up just on their own. It kind of happened in Middlesex County, it happened a little bit down in Camden County, a little bit in Monmouth, but they would get together at a bar and have like green drinks, they would have an event or something like that, and they would start talking about, well, what are you doing in your town? Or, oh, you did that really cool rain garden in your town, how can I talk to my mayor to have them do the same thing, right? And what has happened now is they have these formalized regional hubs, right? And it's a network of leaders. We have quarterly events in all these different regions and counties. They're usually based in counties, but places like in Camden, they have like what they call a tri-county hub. They share models and best practices. It increases collaboration. They help their peers get certified. Some of them have an online communication platform. And right now we have 9 of these different hubs. The cool thing is when they all start to get together and they say, let's do a project together. So Bergen County just started a hub a year and a half ago, and they've already managed to put a campaign in place to ban styrofoam throughout Bergen County. And they've lobbied their freeholders, they've done a lot of legwork, a lot of outreach at all their local municipal green fairs, and so now they're on the cusp of doing that, of actually banning styrofoam. In Essex County, they've gone even further. They got together 7 or 8 different towns, Irvington, South Orange, Maplewood, rich and poor towns, majority white, majority black and brown communities came together, and they said, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do what's called an RGEA, a Regional Government Energy Aggregation, which meant that these towns banded together and we're gonna bulk purchase all of their energy for their towns. Residents can opt out of it, but they're automatically kind of like brought into it. And the renewable, it's actually renewable government energy aggregation, pardon me. The cool part of this bulk purchase is that they then mandated that a certain percentage of their energy purchase has to come from renewable resources. It gets a little more complex because nothing is either non-renewable or purely renewable, so there are different kind of like facets and overlays to it. But you see towns now that have 40–45% of their energy coming from wind and solar and other renewable resources, which is really great to see. And this started with our regional hubs. So Monmouth County has its own hub too. They started a couple years ago, they did like a summer film series, and they've kind of started they had to regroup a couple times, but now they're doing regular bi-monthly meetings. They switch it up where they'll do it in a different town, and that town's green team sets the agenda for each meeting. So we've got about 25 towns that are actively participating. Our next meeting is in Long Branch, I believe the next week, like just after Memorial Day. I can get you the information if you want to attend. It's open to everyone, by the way. So the big thing that we're doing in Monmouth County is we're partnering with Monmouth County's Grown in Monmouth program, and we want to do a countywide Buy Fresh, Buy Local campaign. That's going to coincide with what the county is doing. the great thing about this is that you've got really great restaurants in Red Bank and Long Branch and Asbury, right, that participate in the program, and they partner with farmers out in Millstone and Upper Freehold and Marlboro and Howell and places that normally these towns don't really collaborate on things, and this is one thing that they're working on together. So they work with the farmers out in west of Route 18 with all the cool restaurants east of Route 18 to kind of expand this Grow in Monmouth program. The cool thing is that as they do that, all these towns that participate in there get points for the Buy Fresh, Buy Local action in the brochure. So at the end of the day, it benefits the towns in terms of kind of moving ahead, progressing in the program. And there's also committees that are forming on recycling and watershed conservation. You're going to hear more and more about that in the next year or so. And these are all the participating towns in Sustainable Jersey in Monmouth County. The only ones that are really not participating are the small kind of like donut hole towns like Farmingdale or Interlaken, and those kind of like small Lock Arbor, which is basically the size of this room. And if you notice, there's only 2 towns that are silver certified in Monmouth County. Asbury Park, my hometown, and Red Bank. So that's something to really be proud of. Because you guys are a rock star. You really are. And I use you guys as an example in Red Bank all the time. You got silver certified in 2018 by doing really great community-based grassroots actions like the Earth Day Expo. You co-hosted a panel right here on lead poisoning, right? There's an EV charging station over by Borough Hall. You've got the community garden on Marion Street, the farmer's market, the rain garden over here. So, and one of the really cool things that you guys are doing is your Complete Streets initiatives, which I won't get too much into it unless if you guys know about it or don't know about it, I don't know. But essentially, Red Bank was selected as one of 9 communities to receive technical assistance through a grant. And that technical assistance was provided by the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers, the New Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and Sustainable Jersey. And basically what Complete Streets are, if you don't know, are basically designing your roads that are designed for all users, not just drivers. So it's pedestrians, bicyclists, and the Complete Streets also consider kind of like local context, right? So it takes in the culture of the community that it's based in. So what Red Bank did, essentially, the borough requested technical assistance to develop different concepts and plans to demonstrate these safety enhancements to 2 locations, right? One of the locations it was done, right? It was over at Parker Boulevard. And what they used was tactical urbanism, which is essentially light, quick, cheap ways to implement changes fast. It allows municipalities to test different concepts to see if they work, if they don't work. And they do it within a small budget, which is really the important thing. Tactical urbanism can pave the way to permanent infrastructure if, by doing it in a low-risk way. Really, a lot of it has to do with just paint, and you've seen it over at that intersection where they did the whole mural and everything, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Could you explain that a bit? I've driven past it. What do I do?
Sure. So that
make a circle in the street, or
right? Yeah. So we have one in Asbury Park as well, right? So basically, Complete Streets. One of the main things about Complete Streets is safety and making an area pedestrian friendly, especially if it's an area that isn't normally considered pedestrian friendly because the cars just whiz by at higher speeds than they should. So what happens is that when you create things like bike lanes, or if you have really distinct painted crosswalks that aren't faded out or have like a really cool design to them, or you put some sort of a mural in an intersection, the driver, it's almost subconsciously starts to slow down because it's something that disrupts just the regular roadway. And so what that does is it slows down the cars, it creates a much safer environment for pedestrians and also for bicyclists. So that's essentially what it is. It's using kind of art as a way to make things more sustainable.
Nancy's actually one of the main
Yes.
people working on she's I was there when they were doing it.
It was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is interesting. We did it.
And yes, we did see the cars slow down significantly.
Yeah.
You did, right?
I
Yeah,
thought
they
I
were-
wasn't allowed to drive over it, that's probably.
Well, once the paint's dry, then you can drive over it.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't obvious that maybe
It's
Right.
yeah.
it was different.
What do I do? Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, if somebody is not, especially if somebody who is just trying to get from one end of the road to the other, all of a sudden they come across it, it's just a way for them to slow down, right?
Can I just say a little bit more about that intersection?
Go for it. I love it. Go
Okay,
for
one
it.
thing we have at that intersection is that in terms of EJ, you do have a lot of pedestrians who are walking. They tend to be black and brown people. There's lunch break, which is a food bank that's down the street, Monmouth Daycare Center, Count Basie Fields. Then you have the Boys and Girls Club at the corner, and then a bodega. And I sat out there with those guys numerous times, and even when they did the surveys, and it's amazing how many people are literally walking or riding their bicycles. And for the record, in that area, no cyclist actually rides on the road for obvious reasons, as well as how busy that intersection is. It was really surprising. And you have an industrial area on Central Avenue, I believe. So therefore you have, Red Bank recycling trucks coming in, Alfonso's paving, and then these two huge vehicles are trying to cross each other, coming from Dr. James going on to Bridge Avenue.
Sure.
And so I think it ended up being the perfect location.
Yeah,
We did see cars slow down, we did see people take pause,
that's great.
and got a lot of feedback as well.
And part of that feedback is going into a whole study. So,
Yeah.
part of this whole grant thing is to get as much data as possible for future endeavors in tactical urbanism. Because the goal, and thank you so much for that, by the way. I really love to hear that kind of stuff from these projects. The goal of these projects is to demonstrate these potential approaches to improving pedestrian crossing. And also it creates an opportunity for dialogue through input, through public feedback, to see what works for businesses, because what works in one town might not really work in somewhere else. Or it takes on a different form. In Asbury Park, in my town, I don't know when was the last time you went on Main Street over there? But it's essentially Route 71. It's a 4-lane highway. And it took a lot of lobbying, a lot of convincing, but we are now in the midst of doing a road diet over there, which is a big part of Complete Streets, where we're reducing it down to 1 lane going north, 1 lane going south, and a center turning lane. And people were scared to death when they heard about this. They're like, it's gonna cause traffic, it's gonna tie up traffic in the summertime with all the tourists and the vacationers and everything. So they just started putting like the temporary kind of, where the arrows go and where the temporary paint. People love it. It's incredible. The drive is a lot smoother. You don't see people that are driving down these roads. Same thing with Parker Boulevard, where they're driving at 65 miles an hour just to get through it, right? And the great thing is that not only do the residents like it, but the businesses start to like it, because nobody goes shopping at 65 miles an hour, right? So it really helps with economic development as well.
Did they do something with the leftover road, like bike paths?
So what they did was they also have bike lanes on both sides, and I don't know exactly what they're going to do. You're talking about with the debris or anything like that?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, no, they're doing bike. Yeah, they've got the parking, alongside, and then there's bike lanes on both sides, and then 1 lane going one way, a center turning lane, and then another lane going the other way. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So really quick, this is just how some of the data collection that they did to figure out where they were going to put this tactical urbanism in Red Bank. And this basically provides a profile of all the different roads, all the different intersections, using crash data and car population data and things like that. So, and then the team developed concept designs that were reviewed and revised based on the feedback from all the stakeholders. So this is it. This is that intersection, right? This is basically tactical urbanism happening right in your backyard. This was the draft. This is what came out of it. And then last week, after the installation was complete, wasn't last week, I think it might have been a couple weeks ago, But
It's last week.
was it last week? Okay, great. So Voorhees Transportation Commission, they conducted a survey of users to gain feedback on the project. So, and the intersection, you know, like you said, it helped ease traffic and it's making things safer in terms of that. So there's a White Street project as well, which hasn't happened yet. But these are some alternate design concepts for the street murals there. And basically using paint and plants, you know, potted plants, I mean, it's as temporary as you can get, can create a free flow of pedestrian traffic. It slows down the cars on Broad Street, and it creates a space for people to stop and enjoy all that the downtown has to offer. It basically is the difference between creating a plaza and just having an intersection there, right? And again, it's temporary, but with potential permanence.
Is that blocking off White Street? Am I reading that right?
So that's something that they're doing, that they could do on a temporary basis, where they make it only pedestrian only for a few hours, you know, on like a first Friday or a first Saturday or something like that. So Somerville did something similar, and the businesses loved it so much that now there's where it was like a temporary, sometimes pedestrian only, now it's permanently a pedestrian only street on this one part of downtown Somerville, if you've ever been there before. So it cuts down on greenhouse gas emissions, it lowers your downtown's dependency on fossil fuel vehicles, and it creates a healthier, greener community because you're also walking more and burning more calories and all that other good stuff that happens when you know, a place is more pedestrian friendly.
Is this part of there was something that just rolled out just yesterday or the day before for the White Street redevelopment. Is this part of that?
I don't know, but I think you might know.
No, this was just to be a demonstration for tactical urbanism. However, the White Street and English Plaza redesign that's taking place, they are looking to put a similar plaza in a place called Emmanuel Court. So it's like a little alleyway between West Front Street and into English Plaza, between JJ's and Delicacies, and there's a store.
That alley where people can't see squat?
Right, people can't see, and what they found was, the reason why they chose that was that their cars during rush hour, you know, you have to come down Water Street and then you gotta make that turn to get onto West Front Street. Well, they would go down White Street and end up cutting out through the alley.
Oh, okay.
And that jammed up traffic right at Broad and West Front Street. So they're just gonna close it down and make it into what that was supposed to be,
Yeah.
essentially.
That's pretty great. Yeah.
I'll be quiet now.
No, listen, you know, because you live here, you know more than me on this stuff, so.
I actually worked on that one too.
That's great. It's really cool. I can tell you, or if you ever notice, I think it's during the summer on Saturday nights in Jersey City, Newark Avenue basically does the same thing. You know, so it's like.
My friend was like part of the Sustainable Jersey City, like initial group. So.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing, it's a pedestrian only street during that time. All the restaurants put their chairs out. It's really, really great. It's great for families, it's great for all kinds of stuff. The other really cool thing that I always like compliment Kate Trajano for is Red Bank, when they first started getting really into getting certified and getting silver certification, they were awarded a grant by Sustainable Jersey and PSEG to put water bottle refilling stations in I think there's 3 of them, right, in different parks throughout Red Bank. And they're basically a push button spout, and there's even a doggy water dish that's built into the base of it. And on the sides are illustrated all the information panels in English and in Spanish about all the birds that are found locally. And then it was actually, the graphics were created by Kate Oakson and Nick Responti, so 2 local people. So it's pretty cool. So it's amazing what you could do in terms of transforming the culture and kind of a space within the town with, you know, 10 grand, which in a town's budget is like a drop in the bucket. So
And where are those?
this is at the what's that,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Across from Coffee Corral.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one at borough too, right? So there's the borough
No,
hall.
that was
Just big
just
borough-
for,
borough-
That was just the demo.
yeah, that was,
Okay,
that's
okay.
right. There's one
Yeah.
going in Riverside Gardens at some point, Count Basie Fields and Eastside Park.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been angling for it at the library too.
That's so awesome, yeah. And it's really great because it just lowers your dependency on plastic water bottles. I know that the council's really trying to push to do a plastic, single-use plastic ban, which hopefully will happen soon. And what I said to, since you're on the green team, I can tell you, what I mentioned to Kate was, because the one worry that she had was, well, what about people that can't afford those really nice reusable cloth bags? Well, I said, well, why don't you apply for a grant to Sustainable Jersey, and then you could buy in bulk like all these, reusable bags that you could then give out at the barber shops, at the bodegas, at school, wherever that you feel that, people who maybe can't go and buy like a $20 canvas bag or a $30 canvas bag, you can get one for free that says, Sustainable Red Bank or something like that on it. So the resources out there for doing these things are, there's a lot out there. And it's incredible how something as small or what you think it really isn't that important ends up turning out to be very important and it really makes an impact, really moves the needle for sustainability at the local level. And that's what we're all about at Sustainable Jersey. So seeing stuff like this is always great. And seeing this in 450 towns all over New Jersey, it's the reason why New Jersey, believe it or not, New Jersey is actually, for all the stereotypes and everything, we are the leader in the local sustainability movement. There are 13 other similar organizations to Sustainable Jersey nationwide in Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Florida, California, and most of them have kind of based their certification type program on Sustainable Jersey and what we do in New Jersey. So it's a real testament to what our state does and the people in the state. So what I like to do is always let people know where our funding comes from. We're very transparent about who funds us and how and what and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of done by design that a third comes from government grants, another third from foundation grants, and another third from corporate sponsorships. We do this on purpose because we're a standards organization, so we don't want to be beholden to one, like let's say a bunch of private companies or to the state or to, a few really well-to-do family foundations. So we spread it out that way. We don't take any individual money or anything like that. We'll gladly take it, but we don't, that's not our main thing. And it's something where I always like to kind of put that on there to just so people know where this funding comes from. So really quick in terms of opportunities coming up, what we see in the local sustainability movement is we see an increasing participation and growing interest in sustainability at the local level. We see more municipal and school participants. We see our schools program and the next generation of residents, our students, really kind of taking the reins, similar to when we were growing up and recycling was kind of like this new big thing and people would complain, man, this is such a bother, but now it's almost like second nature, right? Now we're basically helping schools educate students and the next generation on best practices and behavior, like good behavior when it comes to sustainability, shutting off the lights when you leave a room, that kind of thing. We have more NGOs and more partners that we're doing things with, and we start seeing an increased focus on local sustainability versus national. Even though the Green New Deal is this really big thing that a lot of people are really supporting, myself included, a lot of times people feel like it's out there, it's not something that's easily achievable. So a lot of the, especially with an administration changes like the one that we have at the federal level, and maybe climate change isn't a priority, right, to say the least. So we see that people are able to make change at the local level, and we're seeing that growing trend. There's increased attention, like I showed, about EJ and social equity. We are working with active participants to go deeper with other gold standards. So right now we are working on a gold standard in waste, one in water, and another one in public health. What we're noticing is that all the different health entities, whether it's hospitals or government entities and things like that, the upstream determinants of health in communities and in societies are super important to sustainability. And another cool thing is we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. So we're celebrating a decade of all these really great achievements. We're engaging with participants and stakeholders and sponsors to envision like the next 10 years, like what's now, we've done the cutting edge, what's the bleeding edge now? And we have our awesome sustainability summit that's happening June 14th at Bellworks. And the cool thing about this is that we have this every year. We usually have it at our offices at TCNJ. We're on the campus of TCNJ. We sell out every year at capacity, which is 350 attendees. So this year, partly because of our 10th anniversary, partly because we want to do something really cool and different, we have moved it to Bellworks. And we've got 12 breakout sessions throughout the entire day. We have this expo area where you can meet different businesses, organizations, and agencies that can help towns achieve different sustainability goals. We have an EV ride and drive where not only can you test drive an electric vehicle like a Nissan Leaf or a Tesla, but also electric garbage trucks and school buses and all different things. You're gonna have to have your CDL license for those, but you can see how they work in terms of changing municipal fleets and school fleets to alternate fuels. And also really cool, Lime Scooters is doing a e-scooter demo. So in Bellworks, so you're going to be able to ride a scooter and try it out right in the middle of Bellworks, which is really cool. I tried it out. Summer tried it out in Asbury Park a couple of weeks ago, and so I definitely suggest you go to it. So yeah, it's really great. Tickets are $35 for elected, appointed officials, for public employees, and for Green Team volunteers. Everyone else is $100, which is kind of steep. I get it, but definitely let me know if you're really interested. We'll see if we can find some generous person that will sponsor you to go to it if you really want to go. And that's it.
So yeah, you know, like what the green team is just kind of like part of what's been doing a lot of stuff in town. We also have members of our environmental commission here. Roy and Nancy are both on that, and you know, it's been kind of, I've only lived in town for like 2 years, and when I came in, someone was just like, oh, you like environmental stuff, come to the green team, and they just kind of let you do whatever you want. Not whatever you want, but they kind of give you the resources and point you in the right direction. So this is kind of part of that. But you know, right out front, when you leave the library, walk out the door, and there's that garden right in the front. That's a rain garden that was put in there. We didn't have to do anything at the library. We just kind of said, yeah, we'll take it. And the Rutgers, I think it was like the Master Gardener program, but they just came by and just put it in one day, like the hottest day in the summer, and they just put the thing in there. And you know, you kind of think, if you don't know what a rain garden is, it's when it rains, you know, a lot of the storm water goes into the rivers here, and it's got a bunch of chemicals on it. When it goes into a garden, instead, it seeps into the ground, and it kind of cleans it out, and it keeps a lot of stuff from going into a river. It also stopped our basement from flooding. You know, so like, you know, kind of the cool thing about we've had it happen like once. It used to be constant every time there was rain, and you know, so like kind of the cool thing about a lot of the sustainable actions that have been happening in Red Bank and elsewhere is, like, you know, they also save you money. They also are, you know, look really nice. They also help out a bunch of other different ways. So you know, I don't know if anyone else who's been doing anything in town wants to talk about what else we've been doing, but you know, like, there is a lot that you can kind of do with sustainability that isn't, you know, that is basically just kind of like, you know, I'd like to do this, and then people will just say, yeah, we'll organize it. We did a townwide cleanup a few weeks ago that like 35 people showed up to, and we cleaned a ton of garbage out from down Riverside Gardens Park. Has that gorgeous boardwalk, but a bunch of people, there's a bunch of stuff that just washes up in those reeds there, and like 10 people got down there and cleaned like a ton out of it. We cleaned by Coffee Corral. We did, yeah, it was really cool. Mackenzie here actually has come to a few of our previous programs, and she reached out to us about doing plugging. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's jogging and plucking combined is what it's called. It's a Swedish thing where they run around, and while you're going for a jog, you clean up trash. So we're actually, there's a flyer right here for the Red Bank Jogging Club. It's gonna be just jogging the first time, but eventually we're gonna do some like plogging stuff. You know, like there's really cool like kind of small things like that are happening in town here. And you know, it seems like it's worth letting people know that. You know, it's that on top of like political stuff that people are doing. You know, like, you know, the Sunrise Movement is really involved in a lot of that. And there's a lot of people who just are focusing on like federal level and Green New Deal, and there's a lot of stuff happening locally too. So
And it's all important. Like it all collectively makes sense. You know, it's something where like we have Summer Clark here, who's one of the leaders of the Jersey Shore Sunrise Movement, and it's incredible to see so many young people that are like taking this seriously, because you know they're the ones that are going to get screwed if we don't do something. But at the same time, some people just, you know, they just feel more comfortable, or they rather just focus on their own neighborhood, their own school district, and so it all interplays in a really holistic way. So it's great to see.
yeah.
I'll just mention something that's been happening in Middletown, just the third Saturday of the month. It's called the Bionutrient Farming Association. And they're all about organic farming, but also being able to measure the nutrient content of food. So the national group is based in Massachusetts, and this is like a local chapter that just started. Two brothers.
That's
started.
so cool.
And you know, it looks like it would be something that grow. They're working on a device that would allow you to go to a grocery store. The ultimate would be, okay, you have two different kinds of spinach or lettuce or whatever. You know, maybe one is organic, one is not. And the device would tell you, okay, this has, you know, nutrient density 59, this one has nutrient density 25. So this would gradually, the hope is this would migrate people toward buying more nutritious food.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff that I always tell people. Look, apply for a grant. Like, get funded. It's easy to do that.
We'll tell them about your organization. Yeah.
Sure. Middletown's a great example. Middletown. How many here are residents of Red Bank? Okay, great. So, and how many either know people in Middletown or live in Middletown, right? And so it's always kind of like Red Bank is the cool blue dot that's surrounded by Middletown for the most part, right? Middletown is actually really on the cutting edge of a lot of sustainability stuff. The former mayor, Jerry Scharfenberger, was a big proponent of sustainable Jersey within their town. They have a community garden up by Ideal Beach where they won a grant from us after a lot of lobbying from him to do a green roof on the community garden. So they just have all these really cool little projects like that, probably because it's such a big, sprawling suburban township with a lot of resources. But it kind of goes to the one thing that I said before, was that we really cut across any kind of political or partisan lines. 2/3 of the towns that are in our program are from, you know, Republican-controlled towns. And what you see is that, yes, it's sustainable, it's good for climate change, but a lot of these towns, especially ones that are out west or out in the northwest, far away from urban centers and college towns, things like that, you see that they're really interested in saving taxpayer money, and that's part of sustainability too. So it really cuts across all the ideological stuff that sometimes gets muddied in the conversation when you talk about like national stuff and Democrat versus Republican or whatever else. It really gets down to fixing that street in your town, or making your town that much healthier for kids and schools and things like that. So that's kind of the cool thing about local sustainability. So.
I just want to make a comment about, so I've been like working a lot with the schools in Middletown, like substituting and things, and
Yeah.
I've noticed like there's a lot of like you know, you see all those like artwork and things like, oh, we're gonna help save the planet and reduce
Right.
plastic or whatever it is. I think it's great that kids learn about that stuff, I just wish that there was maybe more like action being taken, and maybe some more like maybe fundamental stuff by the school district for them to provide more waste bins outside. I just feel like even today I was just at a school and I was picking up plastic and I was like, where's the garbage? There is no one in their playground, and I was like, where am I gonna put this? And at other schools too, like I've just noticed that like, you know, kids, it's just kids, you know, naturally, I guess, just leave their plastic bag on the ground. Meanwhile, like they're worrying about they're writing on a piece of paper, oh, I want to get rid of all plastic. I don't know, just like little things like that I was starting to notice, and I'm like, why is this like still like such a big issue?
Well, it's a lot, and you're dealing with kids, right? So
yeah, but even like the adults who are not doing anything, who are watching them, you know what I mean? Like it's just.
It's funny that you mentioned that specifically with schools, because in June the DEP is putting out new guidelines for schools in terms of waste, and kind of a lot of it has to do, the schools want to do it. It's not like the schools are like, screw this, what's this candy wrapper going to do, right? I'm going to throw it on the ground. It's not about, schools and municipalities have a ton of authority. What's that?
It's about money.
It's about, well, it's also, it's about resources, right? And it's about guidance.
I mean, I teach down in Ocean County, and we did a school-wide, we started as our STEM program, recycling paper, because we didn't, you know, it's the law. The STEM program is only 3 years old, so like, it's not like we were doing this 20 years ago.
Right.
And literally, the biggest problem we had was, well, what are we gonna put it in? And there's no bins. And, well, is there money for bins? We wound up using the paper boxes as our bins, because when we approached administration about, we need something to put the paper in, they were like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, I mean, even
so a lot of it is money.
It's 90% resources. It's something where, and so that's why these guidelines are so important that are coming out. I would keep a lookout for it, definitely disseminate that information. I know DEP is going to do a big push in terms of outreach, but it's solely on just that waste and waste management in schools.
And like the cafeterias, giving
Cafeterias.
out all the silverwares in like plastic. I mean, I get it. It's like, you know, it has to be cleaned up or like everything. But that's the cheapest way for them to.
And so here's how it works, right? Like in my daughter's school, my daughter goes to a school where it's Deal Elementary School. There's 150 kids from K through 8. It's a really super small school, right? So that school, what they wanted to do, they have a pretty active green team, not because of me, just because they are, and they wanted to stop using the styrofoam trays at lunch, right? It's a huge waste. It's probably the biggest waste of the cafeteria.
Off the top and then.
Right. So what they wanted to do was get reusable trays, right? So one, the trays cost money. Two, they have to work with Sodexo in order to get them. Oh, and by the way, because you have these now reusable plastic trays, you have to make sure that you have a separate sink just to wash those things. So if you don't have that separate sink, then you're SOL, right? So luckily they were able to kind of like figure it out and make it happen. And they took up a collection, the kids took up a collection, they sold these smelly pencils or something in order to, right. And they sold enough where they got enough money where they were able to purchase these reusable trays, and they're not using styrofoam trays next year, right? But some schools, like let's say, you know, a school in Asbury Park, maybe they don't have the resources to completely change the plumbing in their cafeteria for a separate sink because they only have 2 sinks, and you know they can't do it, you know. So it really is about resources, about money, and you know that's where we try to guide these different entities to, you know, to most resources as possible. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, just a very good overview. Let me pose something to you. Give me the soundbite of what sustainability is.
Sustainability is in terms of an action, or just what sustainability?
What would you tell somebody that knows nothing about it?
Sustainability means that you are making your local community cleaner, greener, and healthier.
Okay. That should be the lead to this.
Yep. Yeah,
But it gets lost in the noise.
Sure.
Where people feel, this is overwhelming.
Mhm.
Whereas if you define it that way and then say, and here's all the aspects, which you've laid out very nicely.
Yep. And that's essentially what it is. Because some people, and you're right, yeah, sometimes people, they hear sustainability and they're like, what is that? But again, each town is different, right?
Mhm.
So, a town by the shore, sustainability is about, oh my God, what are we gonna do when the next Sandy hits? Where, a town or a city like Newark, it's about, oh my God, where am I gonna get fresh, healthy food for my kids? Because all I've got is the convenience store and McDonald's. So it is very different each town. So.
To that point, about the definition of terms, I took the flyer for tonight to the group on Saturday. I just bought 15 copies and passed them out.
Which group?
To the, it's called the Bionutrient Food Association. It's a local chapter. So there was somebody in the audience who said, he was kind of upset at the term sustainable. He said, we don't need sustainable, we need renewable.
Regenerative.
Regenerative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was pretty, agitated about this.
Well, that is part of sustainability. The way you sustain something is, what do you do with all the waste, right?
Yeah.
So I would go even further and say it's not renewable, it's reusable. Because renewable, when you're talking about, let's say, not energy, but let's say waste, recycling, that's a huge crisis that no one is talking about.
Yeah.
And really it's about reusing different things and repurposing different things.
Yeah, what I said is, well, different words mean different things.
Sure.
Mean the same thing to different people.
Yep.
So, but that's a problem that I was surprised at, like, somebody doesn't like sustainability.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something about the paper that we were wasting with the flyers. we had last month we did this environmental racism talk. We kind of helped kick this off. It was part of the Let's Talk About Race. And we made the mistake of putting out a bunch of plastic water bottles. And we had about 10 people come up to us at the end like, guys, this is great. And so we've actually talked about getting a water cooler that we can bring in here. But again, that's like a funding thing, and it's like trying to, those, it's kind of like you want to get your stuff out there, but you print out 100 copies of it.
Sustainability means, how much time do we have? Do we have like?
Oh, we can,
Can I bore you guys with a really quick story that's kind of funny?
Sure.
Okay. So sustainability, right? Has anyone here ever heard of Agenda 21? Okay. So back in the 90s, the UN, when sustainability was just a little embryo, they put out guidelines for sustainability, saying, look, these different things are happening, call it global warming at the time, whatever else. These are, some guidelines that we're putting out that can help, countries and communities in terms of being more sustainable. And sustainability started coming up more and more and more. And they had a conference somewhere, the agenda was called Agenda 21, which was all about sustainability. Some people in the tinfoil hat section of society took that as this is a big, huge UN conspiracy to create a one world government that's going to infiltrate our towns through this sustainability thing, which nobody knows what it really is, right? And so I thought that this was just something, this is pre-internet, so it was really kept in the dark corners of whatever was out there, but it started gaining some momentum. And so it was actually a problem in the 2000s where people were like thinking that sustainability was code for the black helicopters. And we went to one town, I hate to say it, it was in Monmouth County, and I won't mention which one, but we went to go present, why don't you start your own green team, and here's all the really cool stuff that you could do. And a couple of the council people said, I'm sorry, but we heard about Agenda 21, and this is a whole bunch of one world government communist BS. And we are not gonna let this infiltrate our town. And to this day, they are still not. a part of Sustainable Jersey. So, yes, sustainability has many, many different meanings and definitions to different people. So, so yeah, look it up, Agenda 21, it's very, very interesting stuff.
Well, on that note, I really do appreciate everyone coming out. If you want to fill out the survey, that'd be great. We're also, in the name of not putting out a bunch of flyers, if you can put your name and email down, we'll let you know about the next one.
And if you want a copy of the presentation, I was going to print out a bunch of slide decks, but then I realized how unsustainable it is. So if you want to, just contact Matt, and he's got a copy.
Yeah, we can send it to you. But so this is what we're hoping with this series. Is we're hoping it grows. We hope we do a lot more of this. We talked about getting someone in to talk about stuff like with diets. There's a lot of talk about like vegetarianism, flexitarian, veganism, whether local is better than organic, or what type of organic is, or and all these things that people aren't really clear on. And so we're gonna cover stuff like that. We're gonna cover stuff like compost, recycling. Plastic single use at some point, and we're just hoping to kind of like make this a place where people can kind of learn about these. This is the first one. Really appreciate Joe coming and helping us out. If anyone has any suggestions or any recommendations for the future, please let me know. And thank you all again for coming.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, the tactical organization, you say.
Demonstration.